Mary, or Moll Derry, was said to be the fortune teller of the American Revolution. She was sought out for her work and was both feared and respected. Even in her time, she was quite famous and featured in literature. She was born sometime around 1760 and was also married to a man by the name of Valentine, who was also a German Hessian. Records also show that they had 7 healthy children that lived well into adulthood. She was, though, not a woman to be crossed, and if a neighbor angered her, he might find his cattle unable to produce milk, dough unable to rise, and crops unable to grow. And that was only a mild punishment. She was what many knew as being a hex doctor, one who danced between the light and dark energies, gray magic, if you will. Like their white witch counterparts, or folk healers, these practitioners were also healers, but with a twist. Basically, they were where you wanted to go if you wanted revenge on someone that did you wrong. In addition to healing, hex doctors placed, hexes on people that were said to be deserving of it. However, you could not just ask a hex doctor to hex somebody just because you didn't like them. They had to have done something that deserved it. They would also remove hexes and curses if they felt the person had learned their lesson and deserved to have it removed. Moll did have some quote-unquote victims, and one could say that perhaps they did deserve what they got. Some of them were a couple of young men mocking her abilities. It is said that one day she stared at them coldly, saying that they would all meet untimely demises. And, according to legend, that they all did. In roundabout ways, her predictions of these young men all came to pass. One was a young man named Ned Cassidy. In fact, he actually approached her for help, for folk healing in order to help him sleep. But all she did was glare at him and reply to him that the crime he committed, robbing and murdering a peddler from New Jersey who also was on his way to see her to have his fortune told, he was lured by Cassidy and his friend John Updike. He was so frightened by Moll's knowing of this crime that he fled from her home. The other man was hexed by an apprentice of Moll's named Hannah Clark. Hannah Clark, a young woman, performed the old drive a nail into the drawing of Updike's head trick. She did this a little bit each day until he was in such pain that he confessed to the crime and died shortly thereafter. Derry is also said to have had other predictions, including predicting the death of a young woman named Polly Williams at the hands of her fiancé. In fact, if you are familiar with the Americana murder ballad, Pretty Polly, that song is about that very death of Polly Williams. Moll also continues to surface in folklore even after her death in 1843. One interesting fact about hex is that in many cases, hex was a family business, often with practitioners spanning for generations. One example would be the Johann Saylor family, who practiced from the late 18th century up into the 1950s. Along with hex doctors, people also sought out mediums and masters in cartomancy, and one very interesting book to check out on this subject is Witches of Pennsylvania, Occult History and Lore by Thomas White. Now, some of these tales may be true, while others may simply be myth and legend. However, a lot of these can still be seen as cautionary tales. One thing is for certain, is that the tales and legends of old, whether they are based in fact or conceived in the imaginations of a storyteller from long ago, they continue to allure, fascinate, and frighten, and also spark curiosity.